Coming to the Canary Button Company in late 1957, Mrs. Bridget Nettleton led the manufacturing for nearly a decade and a half. She had gained ownership of the company due to her being a distant niece of Von Fleet and his only living relative that authorities could find after his demise. Nettleton and her husband, David Nettleton, came in and out of the plant as if they were king and queen of the world. High society spending time with the riffraff of the world as if it was a favour to the people they had to interact with. David was rarely seen in the plant, preferring to spend his days on his boat or hunting one of the many animals he claimed to be a collector of, while Bridget seemed to never leave, assuring herself that if she did not come every day, that the employees would not work to their full potential. She was a hard woman to deal with, although most people preferred her over her uncle. Her presence was never more than an annoyance in the plant, and although she claimed to be the best person for the job of managing the plant, profits lowered and orders slowed by the end of the 1960s. In August 1966, as the plant pumped out orders in the summer heat, an agent of the FBI came to question Mr. and Mrs. Nettleton about a sting of missing people in the area. All 7 had been employees of the Canary Button Company, and all 7 had gone missing over the last 9 months. Neither of the Nettletons claimed to know anything about what had happened, but rumours spread across the grounds that they were hiding something from the authorities, and they were most definitely involved in the disappearances somehow. Police and investigators questioned multiple people and searched the property multiple times as the search progressed. 2 times their dogs had found traces of the missing, but never found the bodies or any definitive answers. Of the 7 missing people, all were women, and 4 of the 7 were elderly. Janet Davis, Dana Jackson, and Christina Mullip, all in between 55 years of age and 60. All worked in the East Wing, and all had left to come to work and even badged in their time clock, but had never made it home in the evening. Margaret St. Pierre was a middle-aged janitor for the plant, and had been there for over 20 years. She had never missed a day of work, and was always seen bustling with activity, stating that a building this size needed a lot more to keep it up and running. She had 2 daughters at home in their late teens, and they had gone to school as their mother left for work, and it would be the last time they'd ever see her again. The last 2 missing people, Laurie Marsh and Ashley Kingston, were both blonde women who worked in the East Wing, near where the wing met up with the original building. They had the distinction of not only being the youngest of the 7 missing people, 21 and 23 years, but they would also be the only bodies ever found. February 14th of 1968, Valentine's Day. After multiple failed searches, both women were found when a man from a neighbouring business complained of a horrid odour and a clogged drain that dumped out of the plant near his property. The newspapers reported, and accusations spread like wildfire throughout the community. The Nettletons denied any wrongdoing and repeated that they had no idea how the 2 women had found their way into the drainage pipes coming from the plant. The bodies were decomposed to the point that a cause of death could not be determined, but it was most definitely foul play, and over the course of the investigation, every employee of the Canary Button Company was interviewed and questioned. October 16, 1970. David Nettleton was found dead of self-inflicted gunshot wounds in his office. The very same office that Tyler Canary had hung himself in, and his father Ed Canary had died in too, although the similarities of the situation surely were overlooked. There was no suicide note found, but it was quickly determined that he had killed himself after a series of interviews with an FBI agent and the local authorities had gone askew. Having been questioned multiple times over multiple years, his story had changed repeatedly, and eventually they'd gotten to a point that it was clear that he was going to be caught. Mrs. Bridget Nettleton was beside herself in disbelief, and never faltered that she was innocent, and went as far as buying ads in the local papers to showcase, in her own words, her version of the story. Slowly she faded from the scene at the plant, and as the orders continued and the investigation closed, the Canary Button Company seemed to fall back into a form of normality. Orders came in, orders went out. No sight of Mrs. Nettleton, and things were progressing finely. In the spring of 1972, Mrs. Nettleton was removed from management at the Canary Button Company when she had a nervous breakdown. She swore that people were following her and that people within the plant were plotting her downfall. She went as far as to yell out about shadow people in the plant, and that they were trying to kill her and had set up her husband. All this played out on the local news as they recorded her being removed from her home and taken away to an undisclosed location. Truth be told, she knew more than most people would ever know about the Canary Button Company, but she'd never be taken seriously. She'd spent the rest of her days in the Josephine Hills Insane Asylum, not much over a mile away from the hill where the Canary Button Company sat, feeding its darkness out and into the world. I'd like to think that she spent every day looking out of her window across the river, wondering how that place had gotten the best of her and her husband. I know that from the darkness behind its windows, that the plant looked back and mocked her as it stood like her tombstone overlooking the ever-growing Josephine Hills, Pennsylvania.